And I was just so happy to be with these people being themselves and like playing full out in the way that they wanted to play full out. And it was so cool and happy and joyful. And I know you have, with all the self-compassion work you've done, one of the things that I've heard you talk about is staying out of judgment.
Yes.
And I know you practice that. So I wanted to talk today about this whole concept of how when we judge ourselves and when we judge others, we are stealing our joy. We're stealing the opportunity to really feel and experience bliss. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alicia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Okay, so today we want to talk about joy and judgment. And I think, first of all, how are you today, Jonathan?
I'm doing well and excited to be here. Happy to be here.
Okay. Joyfully?
Yeah, joyfully here.
So I had this experience, and this is really the inspiration for today. And it was really the moment when I realized I've reached a new level in life, just all the work I've been doing for so many years. And I'm at this dance with my son, who he is 7. And so we go to this mother-son dance, and it's like, imagine middle school or high school, like cafeteria, like very, very, got the mood going on, right? And, they got these lights, it's a glow party. And if you've never been to a mother-son dance, it is not at all what I imagined. I thought like, oh, we're going to have this magical moment and we're going to like dance and da 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 da. No, it is a bunch of adults acting like obstacles while children run around like crazy people and play tag. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
at this dance, and we got together with my son's friend group and we made these t-shirts, and they're like glow in the dark t-shirts. So we've all got our matching t-shirts on, and there are people showing up, women showing up with their sons who are pulling up in like the party vans, like the party buses. There are groups of women dressed in tutus. There are women who are dressed head to toe in like pink sequins. And I mean, just everybody, some women are like really dressed up, like they're going to like a ball. They're all going out however they want. And there was a time in my life where if you were there with me, Jonathan, we would have stood in a corner and we would have judged like all the people, and like with our we would have been snarky, right? I would have been snarky. and I was there and I was like, you go, girl. Like, I love this for you. I love that you feel amazing. I love that you're going all out for your kid. I love that you're showing up big and you are smiling and you are feeling amazing. I hope you're feeling amazing, because I'm sure in some places, like some people were I'm sure there were snarky people there.
There was probably a lot of judgment in that room.
Right? But I was having the best time. And I'm watching, my son loves to dance. He's like, wants to be a DJ and a break dancer when he grows up. And I'm like, I hope that you find your path to do that, because he does. When I watch him dance, he is in like just pure bliss. He is in another world, which is what I love most to do in this world, is watch a person just completely unleash into the thing that they feel. If you've ever experienced someone who's just in their talent and they're excellent and they're just like in their own world, it's so moving. And so there's my son like dancing, and I'm like, you know what? I love to dance too. I'm going to dance. So we're like full out dancing in the middle of the tag. And I was like, oh, I came back to you. Remember we had this conversation. I was like,
Yeah.
I think I hit a new level. Like there was no judgment. I was just so happy to be with these people being themselves and like playing full out in the way that they wanted to play full out. And it was so cool and happy and joyful. And I know you have, with all the self-compassion work you've done, one of the things that I've heard you talk about is staying out of judgment.
Yes.
And I know you practice that. So I wanted to talk today about this whole concept of how when we judge ourselves and when we judge others, we are stealing our joy. We're stealing the opportunity to really feel and experience bliss.
Absolutely. And we also stand in the way of connection. Connecting and judgment don't go hand in hand. They're opposites in terms of one gets in the way of the other. And one of the things to bring up, I think, is when you and I talked about this, when you told me this story, when we judge others, especially when it falls into the world of pettiness, when it's what they wear, their hairstyle, or the car they drive, the superficial, I guess I should say, those judgments especially, those come from our own self-criticism, our own lack of self-worth, and our own lack of self-awareness. When you catch yourself in those moments of judgment, turn the spotlight back on yourself and say, okay, where's this coming from? Why is it that I can't find some compassion for that person or some love for that person, or just stay in the joy, stay in that moment of joy, because obviously they're having a good time or they're enjoying themselves. So, but this whole joy versus judgment piece is a multi-episode. We could go into many, many conversations because it's tied to so many different things. But you'll hear us use the term imposter syndrome and worthiness a lot too. And a lot of judgment comes out of us feeling inadequate within ourselves for whatever reason it is. And so we'll look for opportunities to explore that in more detail over the course of this podcast. But as we begin to talk about how to stay in joy, it really is, there's practice around that. And maybe that's something we can get into in some more detail later on, or maybe even in the context of a retreat later on. But practicing those moments of joy and how to let that be contagious, let that be something that reaches other people and reaches a situation, as opposed to the other side of that, which we often go to, is judgment, because judgment has harsh effects that extend outside of ourselves as well. And judgment often leads to sabotage. So, whether it's relationships or businesses or parenting, all those things can be undermined because of judgment.
Yeah. So I want to go one place. First place I go is, you mentioned something about connection and judgment and how they like can't coexist in some ways. However, I want us to get your opinion on this, because there was a time in my life, and now I don't find this the same, that gets evolved, when judging and talking about other people. And one of the things that I'm working to instill in my kids, and I work to practice myself, and I think this is a really good policy, is to not talk negatively about someone who is not in the conversation or in the room. Like
Yeah,
if you
I
just
like
make that a policy, then you no longer gossip, right? You no longer are doing that. However, I see people use that as a way to connect with each other.
Well, I would say you need to look at your definition of connection, because I do think that there may be a relatability where people are trying to find something that they have in common. Well, that when it stays in the superficial, I don't really define that as connection. You may have connected, but you don't have connection. Connection is something that has lasting and powerful effects. Connection is something that should be a positive experience. So, and it should have the potential to grow from. When it's something like judging, oh, would you look at what she's wearing? Or did you see what they drove up in? Can you believe how, blah, blah, blah. Those may be those points where you've connected to somebody, but it's not a connection, because connection lasts. Alicia and I are both very visual thinkers. So I often, as we talk, I have cartoons playing through my head that are being created on the spot. So one of the things, though, that I recently saw is drawn as a cartoon, but it was really cool. It was kind of this comparison. It was two women talking about another woman in a grocery store. And the first scene was something that they were saying that was negative, some sort of judgment. And I don't remember what it was. They were criticizing the way she was dressed, or can you believe somebody would wear that to the grocery store, or something like that. And the woman that they were judging didn't hear the words, but she felt the energy. And she had this look of distraught and sad on her face. And then the other cartoon, the counter to that, was two women talking about this woman and her ability to handle three small children and still get her grocery shopping done in a positive way. It's like, instead of the fact that she looked like she just rolled out of bed and probably hadn't showered in 2 days because she's got 3 kids under the age of 5, they said that is amazing that she can actually get those kids here, get her grocery shopping done. And one of the women was like, I wonder if there's a way we could help her. And it was sort of the idea that our energy and our intention is felt and much outside of ourselves. And the woman saw them staring and saw them talking about her, but she felt the positive intention. And instead of a sad look of sadness and distraught on her face, she smiled back at them. So it's like, that may seem small on the surface, but that impact could be huge. So that's,
I love what,
anyway, that just,
I love what you're saying.
Played through my head.
No, I love what you're saying about the energetic quality of things, right? So there's a lot of sometimes, and it's not always talked about it, but the whole concept of being like quantum physics and like the connectedness, and I'm not going to do this justice at all, but I'm going to kind of like pretend like I know what I'm talking about a little bit, because I do a little bit. But this is the magic. I always talk about with my clients, there's these things that happen in the world and it's like magic. And I don't know how it works and I don't know how this happens, but it's just incredible, right? And so a part of that is this quantum study of things that are, everything's connected, and how our energy is, and the emotions that we have is all part of matter. And so it's like why I wake up literally 3 minutes before my son walks in the room in the middle of the night. It's like my energy, my field knows that, and I know there's moms out there who know what I'm talking about. It's like, minutes before your child wakes up that they're awake, or the minutes before they come to you that they're awake and they need you. And so that's kind of what you're describing, is just this connectedness we all have. And so when you speak negatively or judge others, you are hurting yourself.
Absolutely.
And that comes back on you too. So really being mindful of that piece. So I love what you said about connection and like what's connection versus relatability. And what I find is the more work you do on yourself to love yourself unconditionally, to integrate the parts of you that you maybe feel some shame around and understand that those are actually gifts. It's just maybe you need a perspective shift on it in order to know how to use it in a positive way or use it in a way that is part of who you are and your experience. The more you find you can't tolerate being around people who want to gossip, who want to judge. I find myself like if I get into that group, I want to get away from it. I like will walk away, like no
Mhm.
judgment, but I can't be part of it.
So,
You know?
yeah, it's interesting, and I find myself, I do tend to have somewhat of a sarcastic sense of humor, somewhat of a, some things, but I've learned to find humor in things that in the past I would not have found humorous at all. And one of those things often is really, I guess what you could call nitpicky people, like people that are just picking apart a situation or another person. And I have gotten to a place, and someone just pointed it out to me a few days ago. I think I need to be a little more self-aware that I'm doing this, but I have gotten to that place of detachment in a lot of cases where I'll just ask a question, like somebody's having something negative to say about somebody else. I said something the other day to a total stranger. You seem to feel really strongly about that. Ever think of where that's coming from or something like that? Like I asked a question that reframed it, but you would have thought that I slapped this woman in the face. Like it stopped her judgment dead in its tracks. I mean, it was just like, and I felt this almost energetic sputtering, floundering of, oh my gosh, well, I don't know what to do now. I've lost this negative tirade. So now what do I do? So the point is, I think that we do have these opportunities all the time that we don't even recognize as opportunities to help reframe a situation or help refocus the energy. And sometimes that is just walking away or, taking yourself out of the conversation. But there's been recent studies done about the far-reaching effects of kind of this domino effect of energetic properties, and it can be positive or negative. We can have a positive impact by stopping the negative impact or, perpetuating something positive. So, you could think about it as somebody says something harsh or hurtful to someone else. Well, the next domino often is a negative domino that falls. It's kind of has a negative cascade. But the counter to that is you can stop that or you start a positive one. It's like you're really having a bad day. Somebody says something hard and says, seems like you're really having a bad day. I hope you get better rest tonight. Or I sure hope your day changes for the better. Well, hopefully that lands in a positive way and they carry that on. But it really is. There's this cascade effect and can go in either direction. And we have the ability to decide what that outcome looks like quite often.
I like what you're saying around that with the changing the energy or being that person that stops the negativity. And of course, I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I just thought of a quick story that I observed. I was not directly involved in this, but it's an example of this. I was in the airport fairly recently, and there was a guy that obviously was a passenger or would-be passenger that was having a very bad day. And he had some circumstances. It sounded like I heard the whole layout that he was telling to this gate agent, but he was really taking it out on her. And he used a couple of harsh terms with her. And she was the utmost professional, but she also stood her ground in terms of respect. And that's a whole nother subject area we can talk about being strong and holding people to a standard, but still being kind and compassionate. But she just said, sir, I'm just going to stop you right there. She goes, we really can't have this conversation until you're able to calm yourself down and talk to me like a human being. It's like she said, you're not treating me like in an even human way right now. And it was like someone threw cold water on this guy. And he immediately, like tears came to his eyes, and he immediately said, I am so sorry. And he's like, there's a lot more to this story. And she goes, I completely recognize this. And I know you're having a horrible experience and I'm going to do my best to help you. But right now, I need you just to get to a place where we can have a civil conversation. And he went and sat down. Like he checked out for a little while. And then I watched him come back a completely changed person in terms of attitude and energy and respectfulness. And all it took was a few kind and thoughtful words from her, kind of setting a standard of this is the direction this needs to go. So,
yeah. And that works in so many ways, right? Because she set a boundary for how she was willing to be treated. And she communicated that in a respectful, kind way.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really powerful. That's one of the things that I work to teach my kids too, is that they get to state how they want to be treated and hold people accountable. And then let him be responsible for his own emotions. That is one of the things I needed to learn as a people pleaser, was that people are responsible for their own emotions, and that I don't need to adjust in order to make other people feel comfortable when it's not appropriate, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother, we'll do a whole people pleasing episode for sure. But when we're talking about joy and judgment, and that scenario could have gone a very different way had she reacted emotionally. So what a testament to just what it means to have compassionate leadership, right? She really led him and how this interaction was going to go. And what's interesting is out of this rupture was like, he felt seen.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what those tears are. He felt seen and like,
and validated that, yes, he had a tough situation, but someone truly was going to help him, but he had to adjust himself and how he was speaking and the information he was providing or not providing in this case for her to truly help him. So we can create collaboration out of discord quite often by simply stopping judgment, stopping in the moment, the place where, well, obviously, I think he said something to her even that was very judgment loaded, but obviously coming from him, it was something like, you're like the fourth person I've talked to, and I'm sure you're not going to help me either. Mm-hmm. That's, talk about a preconceived notion, self-sabotage right there. Mm-hmm. But we have the ability to stop that in its tracks and put things back into a positive span. Even if it doesn't seem to have impact in that exact moment in terms of turning the tide, I can almost guarantee you every time it does. Even if it's just a little ripple in the pond of that person's, driving home or driving to their next destination or on the flight for 2 hours, and they recount that moment of kindness or that moment of compassion, and they start to ask some questions. It creates some curiosity. And so, that sort of unfolding from that little moment in time can be very positive and very powerful.
Yeah. And I have experienced you with your line of questionings, like your, wow, that's interesting. Or even when we did that survey to get a little bit more information about what people were needing, what people's perspectives were, we got some really interesting feedback from people who had no context of why we were doing a survey. It was really a marketing survey. So why we were doing it, what our intention was. It was not academic in nature. We were not doing some kind of crazy controlled study. And the feedback that came back at one point, someone said, like, basically our questions were crap and that our data was, I think the word was corrupt.
Corrupt. Yes, that was the word.
I had the most strong reaction to this survey. And I was like, these people are being ridiculous. And you're like, wow, ridiculous. That's a very strong word. And I was like, oh, I am triggered. Oh my gosh, what is this about? And so we went through a whole process of unpacking that and my own stuff coming up around not feeling smart, right? So, I have I call them big assumptions. And they're these beliefs that you have about yourself and the way that you work in the world. And it comes from some of the work that we'll talk about in later episodes, but around immunity to change. But So I had this big assumption around not being smart. And so being challenged by someone who's basically like taking an academic analysis of what we were doing, it triggered it. And it was like, I wanted to self protect.
Mm-hmm.
And so you going, wow, that's a strong word. I was like, that I am not showing up in this moment the way that I want to show up. Let me readjust. And this is what we're talking about.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
you and I both, we'll catch ourselves judging or we'll catch ourselves triggered. And it's being able to it's not being inhuman. You are still human. That's why this is a whole human experience, right? It is acknowledging when you are triggered and being able to shift yourself and find the learning and the self-awareness that is so powerful.
Absolutely. And, you know, when we can get to that place of understanding that there's no bad information, like there's no bad data, there's no bad input. There's input that comes from bad things or negative emotion or something else, but it's just input. And it's up to us to decide what we do with it and how we utilize it, how we apply what, or how we disregard it. You know what? That's not something that's useful to me now. It doesn't serve me now. Whatever, but it's taken me, I mean, I still practice it on a daily basis, but I have had a history of being easily triggered by certain things. And, you know, I still have my blind spots. I still have those things, but I will say, just to pat myself on the back a little bit in terms of growth, I have gotten much better at coming to that place of asking questions, trying to stay curious without going to judgment. And try and use that curiosity to see if I can figure out a way to get back to compassion. I don't always make it. I'm completely honest and transparent about that. There are certain types of people, certain personality types, certain things that really tie to some of my own trauma that I still struggle with a lot. But most of the time I can at least stay in that sort of middle ground of peacefulness, of being curious. It's like, I'm not to compassion yet, but I'm still curious. And I still need to figure out how to get there. I know it's important. It gives us those opportunities to, like we mentioned in the first episode, to peel back those layers of self-discovery and of discovery of dynamics with other people. You know, quite often people that are very different than us in some form or fashion.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, the way that we talk about curiosity is like, okay, so I'm making this situation mean one thing. And what other interpretation or perspective is possible here? And so, like in the scenario of me being triggered, what we thought about, and you helped me process this, was, well, also, we sort of excluded anybody who was employed by a corporation. So employed people. And so people who were reacting were people who felt like they didn't have a place to answer the survey.
Yes.
And yet very deeply craved the same things: joy, fulfillment, feelings of success, reaching their goals, and they just didn't have a place to be heard. And so again, when we're triggered, we do strange things like maybe criticize somebody for how they're giving a survey.
Exactly.
And so that really helped me say, oh, compassionate leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they didn't feel seen.
Yeah.
And so I
included.
included. And so I actually ended up sending out like a follow-up apology, which being able to let go of being right and just say, oh, wow, I made someone else feel something that I didn't intend, and just apologize, whether it's accepted or not. That felt like the right thing for me to do. And I could feel really good about how I showed up in that moment out of that trigger.
Yes.
So we're going to wrap up from here today. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, The Conscious Edge, so that you can be notified when our next episodes coming out on a weekly basis. And I am so excited to hear from people. Please let us know what's landing for you, what is meaningful to you. We are always open to feedback and like to know that we're here making a difference for you. So we'll sign off from here, and I'm trying to figure out, Jonathan, like what's a good send off? Like everybody has like these great, let's get started. And I'm like, well, maybe it's like go out and spread love, but that feels a little
I try and tell people to be well.
Be well. Be well. See, that's your thing. I need my thing. To be determined.
Maybe yours is like find your joy, and then I'll say and joy. Be well.
Find your joy, be well. We'll get there. We'll work on it. Okay, everybody?
We'll work on it. If you have some input for us, all information is good information.
All right, everyone. Have
Take
a great
care,
day.
Buddy.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.